Chapter 41 Training Sakura. Naruto didn't know about the arguments between the three generations and several high-level executives. He sat quietly until midnight before falling asleep. The battle with the three generations had benefited him a lot. He believed that in the next battle, he would definitely be better than this time. Early the next morning, Naruto woke up early. After washing up, just as he was about to go out to buy some breakfast, there was a knock on the door. When I opened the door, it was Sakura. "Sakura, why are you here so early?" Naruto was hanging his ninja bag around his waist at this time, and Sakura's appearance obviously surprised him. "Didn't Kakashi-sensei want me to practice with you?" Sakura said with a smile. "I can't wait to become stronger, so I'll come to find you sooner." Naruto smiled and nodded. "Okay, but I haven't had breakfast yet. I'll go buy something to eat later. By the way, have you had breakfast yet?" "I've eaten it." Sakura nodded, then took out a bento from behind with a smile, handed it to Naruto and said, "If you didn't eat it, I'll eat this for you." "Huh, bento at this time?" Naruto was stunned. "This is for me. Thank you so much, Sakura." His heart couldn't help but warm. It turned out that Sakura was also very gentle. Seeing that Naruto had already taken it, Sakura nodded hesitantly, but she was screaming in her heart. This is the lunch she prepared for herself. God knows why he took it out and handed it to him after hearing that he hadn't eaten breakfast. However, looking at Naruto's grateful expression, her heart was sweet. Maybe that's not bad too. So, Naruto opened the bento and ate the food at once, then wiped his mouth and set out on the road with Sakura. In today's training, Naruto still intends to go under that waterfall and continue the last practice. The two came to the waterfall while talking and laughing, then stopped and turned to look at Sakura, saying, "Sakura, I will assign a shadow clone to accompany you to train, and I will go to the other side to train." Naruto, won't you accompany me yourself?" Sakura was a little unhappy when she heard Naruto's words at first, and she only used shadow clone to deal with herself. "What is this?" "I think a shadow clone is enough. Don't underestimate my clone." Naruto didn't know what Sakura was thinking, and she thought her clone was not strong enough. Okay. Sakura opened her mouth, hesitated, and finally nodded her head, but there was a hint of resentment in her heart. This guy, it turned out to be perfunctory me. Naruto didn't see her slightly pouted mouth, but quickly separated a shadow clone, and then the body rushed into the waterfall and practiced. Shadow clone brought Sakura aside to help her practice. "Sakura, your chakra control is good, but there are relatively few chakras, so when fighting, it is very important to allocate chakra reasonably and apply it tactically, although I am constantly in this regard. While studying, I already have some experience. We will let you experience it slowly through battle later." Naruto's clone looked at her and said, "Okay, Naruto, but are you sure you can deal with me only with shadow clone? If you are defeated by me, you will have to replace it with your body." Sakura exclaimed tenderly, still underestimating herself for Naruto. Unsatisfied. Taking out kunai, Sakura stared at Naruto in front of her with a calm concentration, thinking to herself, if you don't blow up your avatar this time, you won't know how powerful this lady is. Naruto stood on the spot and took out a kunai without any hassle before saying, "Let's start. You attack first." Humph. Sakura felt even more unhappy when he saw him despising her like this. After humming lightly, she showed her body and flew towards Naruto like a flying swallow. "Do you want to hit me with such a direct attack?" Naruto squinted his eyes slightly, shook his head secretly, looked at the figure she was rushing towards, and raised the kunai in his hand. When a crisp sound, both of them were ejected backwards by the force of the shock. At this time, Sakura quickly threw out several Ryan swords with both hands, covering Naruto at once. Naruto raised his hand and quickly blocked all the shuriken. When he squinted again, Sakura's figure had circled to his left. "Use a hidden weapon to divert my attention first, and then take the opportunity to attack. This is much more effective than the previous attack." But, Naruto said with a smile, but Sakura found that he had no intention of evading at all. The next moment, only a few chi-chi-chi chirps could be heard, and Naruto's body was immediately shot by many kunai shuriken. However, with a bang, Naruto's body turned into a dead tree, and all the hidden weapons fell on the dead tree. The next moment, Naruto's figure sounded behind Sakura. This tactic has appeared countless times in textbooks. If you don't make a cover and disguise in advance, you can see it at a glance. Sakura couldn't help but froze for a moment, and then an inexplicable smile appeared on her face. Naruto, do you underestimate me like that? Sakura finished, her figure also turned into a piece of wood with a bang. Oh, it turned out to be a substitute technique. Naruto smiled slightly, but his eyes turned to the upper left side of himself. It's well hidden, Sakura. His eyes instantly turned to Sakura's Sakura, who was swooping down from midair and was about to attack him, which made Sakura feel powerless. This guy, just a shadow clone, is already so powerful now. Not only did he dodge his own attack lightly, but he also saw through his own tactics in an instant. This guy is really a monster. Chapter 42 Suggestion. Just being a clone of Naruto, Sakura is powerless. This feeling of powerlessness makes her panic. At the ninja school, she considers herself a top student with outstanding achievements, right? And she was also a student of Konoha's first technician, Kakashi, but at this moment, the only bit of pride she had was destroyed. She still clearly remembered that at the ninja school, Naruto was still a guy with average grades, but in the few days she was with him, almost every day he would surprise her with more surprises. She originally thought that she knew him well enough, but when she got to know him step by step, the result she got was only to fall into a deeper fog again and again. Naruto, I really can't see through you more and more. Regardless of the kunai that Naruto was holding on his neck at the moment, Sakura was dazed without permission. Hey, why are you in a daze? Are you at a loss when you are subdued by the enemy in battle? Naruto said with a stern tone in his voice. Having said that, he withdrew his kunai and let go of Sakura. Stomping her feet, Sakura lowered her head and muttered, "That's not it. Who knew you were so powerful?" Seeing how unwilling she was, Naruto was a little aware of what she was thinking. I'm afraid this girl was hit by herself. Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Next time, let's teach her another way. Maybe, we can let her go that way in advance. Going up to pat her on the shoulder, Naruto smiled and said, Okay, Sakura, don't be discouraged, let's go to lunch after the training, then I have something to tell you. What is it? Sakura heard the words, and his attention was drawn to the second half of his sentence. I'll tell you later. It'll be noon in a few minutes, you should do some practice yourself. Naruto shook his head. Humph. Seeing his mysterious appearance, Sakura couldn't help but snorted coldly, stingy. At noon, the sun is in the sky. Naruto and Sakura were eating at a restaurant. After listening to Naruto's words, Sakura pondered for a long time. Naruto looked at her with a smile. Just now, he had told her the idea of recommending her to be a medical ninja, and he also listed her various advantages over medical ninjutsu. After a long time, Sakura finally raised his head, looked at Naruto and said, although I'm a little unwilling to be left behind so quickly, I think it might be a good thing to become a medical ninja now. So, you've already agreed. Naruto didn't expect Sakura to be persuaded by himself so quickly. Although the naturally kind Sakura yearns for ninjas very much, as a little flower who has lived under the greenhouse of Konoha since she was a child, she does not like fighting and killing, and even some bloody and terrifying pictures are unacceptable, and she also knowing that you want to survive in this dangerous ninja world with your own strength, becoming a medical ninja should be the most correct choice. After all, she thinks that she is not good at fighting, which can only be seen from the fact that she was easily defeated by a clone of Naruto. Yeah, I promise. Sakura finally nodded, and then asked him hesitantly, but, Kakashi-sensei doesn't seem to be a medical ninja, and it seems like it would be troublesome for me to become a medical ninja now. What should I do? Naruto thought for a while, then smiled and said, this is not in a hurry, as long as you have the determination to become a medical ninja now, start with the basics. You can first find a few books about medical ninja knowledge. At that time, you can join the systematic study in the medical Madara. Quote. Is that so? Sakura looked at him and nodded for a while, then I'll listen to you. After saying these words, Sakura felt very puzzled even in his heart. When did he listen to Naruto like this? But his advice really suits me. After noon, Sakura went to find books about medical ninjas alone, while Naruto went back to the waterfall to continue his previous practice. At the same time, he was constantly exploring the power of immortals brought to him by the spell under the waterfall. Naruto-kun, Hinata exclaimed in surprise and delight to Naruto, who was going to get dressed and go back by the waterfall. Hinata. Naruto put on his clothes, smoothed his wet hair, and walked towards Hinata with a smile on his face. Naruto-kun, looking at the dazzling smile on his face, as well as the shattered golden hair that swayed slightly, Hinata couldn't help but beat his heart, and said with a small face, that day, that afternoon when I came to find you, I found that you were not here, and I couldn't find you in the village. Naruto-kun, did you go on a mission? Quote. Naruto was stunned for a while, and immediately remembered the day Sakura came to find him to save Sasu. Hinata must have come to deliver food to him that afternoon, but she could not find herself because she left without saying hello to her. Looking at the concerned look on her face now, it seems that she was worried again at the time. With a warm heart, Naruto smiled and shook his head, stretched out his hand and pulled her white little hand and said, I'm sorry Hinata, I was dragged by Sakura that day, and I forgot to tell you that I was worried about you coming here for nothing. Being pulled by Naruto's hand, Hinata's face became more yuhi. Feeling the warmth from Naruto's hand, she was shy and happy, and seemed to faint again, but finally she had some resistance. So she didn't faint, but at this time she also completely lost her ability to think, and she just let him pull her for a while. Looking at Hinata's cute expression, Naruto also felt very interesting, pulled her and walked back. Hinata, let's go eat something, I'm hungry. It's been a day of training, and it's almost dark now, and Naruto is also feeling tired. That's it for today's training under the waterfall. Let's go back to other aspects of practice. Under the setting sun, the figures of the two were stretched very long, and the far end seemed to have long been connected. Chapter 43 Fight Against 3 Generations. A few days have passed. During these few days, Sakura and Suzuki have their own work to do, and Naruto is the only one left to practice. However, every evening, Hinata will appear by the waterfall on time to follow Naruto. Go to dinner together. Sometimes when Hinata has no assignments, she will stay with Naruto all day, training with him. And today, it's time for Naruto to face the 3 generations again. This was done secretly in an indoor training ground. In the huge training ground, the ground is full of gravel, and there are various tall stones from time to time. This is a training ground that is purely dominated by rock landforms. At this point, the 3rd generation had already taken off the Hokage uniform, revealing the combat uniform inside, and Naruto also changed into a loose white combat uniform. Next to them, there is no ninja, just the 2 of them. Naruto, I haven't seen you for a few days. I noticed that your aura has changed again. Your change is really beyond my expectations. The 3rd generation smiled and looked at Naruto opposite. He couldn't help but admire in his heart. Just judging from the momentum, Naruto is stronger now than a few days ago. 3 generations of old man, then you can learn from my cultivation results in the past few days. Naruto said lightly. Okay, Naruto, wait and see. The 3 generations heard the words, no nonsense, stood there motionless, but the momentum of the whole body was already rising. Naruto frowned slightly, feeling the relationship between himself and him. Imposing manner, it seems that he is trying to force himself to shoot first. The momentum of the 3 generations is as calm as a mountain, and Naruto's momentum is like a sword unsheathed, but under the incomparably huge momentum of the mountain, Naruto's sword has to be unsheathed. Without warning, Naruto threw out several lily swords, and when he threw his hand out, there was also a fast hand seal in his hand. Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. Swish swish. Suddenly, the shuriken that Naruto flew out was divided into 2 and 4. Hundreds of shurikens were instantly differentiated, forming a rain-like curtain of swords that shrouded the 3 generations. A light flashed in the eyes of the 3rd generation, and he handed the seal in admiration. Naruto, in just a few days, you have learned this ninjutsu from me, Doden Earth Style 2 Lubi. As soon as the voice fell, a huge stone wall was erected in front of the 3rd generation, and it suddenly lay in front of the overwhelming shuriken. There was a chaotic sound, and the next moment I saw that the dense shuriken was inserted on the stone wall, but the 3 generations after the stone wall were intact and unharmed at all. The stone wall fell, and the 3 generations jumped out from behind, looking at Naruto with a smile. Is it so imposing as soon as you come up? Hearing the words of the 3rd generation, Naruto's eyes flashed, and he suddenly kicked his feet and leapt high into the air. Bang! There was a shock, and the next moment I saw that the ground where Naruto was standing suddenly burst, and a pair of dead wood-like arms slammed out, followed by the silhouette of the 3rd generation. Doden Earth Style Decapitation in the Heart. At this time, the voice of the 3rd generation sounded. Naruto, who was in the air, avoided the 3rd generation's ninja surgery, looked at the other 3 generations standing by the stone wall, and muttered, "Shadow clone." Fortunately, I dodged quickly, otherwise he would have caught him. However, which of the 2 is the essence? Naruto's eyes turned between the 2, but he didn't see any clues. Just as he was thinking, his figure had fallen to the ground. However, there were several backjumps and traverses immediately under his feet, and he quickly opened the distance from the 2-3 generations. Seeing Naruto dodging his surprise attack and pulling the distance so vigilantly, a hint of admiration flashed in the eyes of the 3rd generation, but immediately, the expression on his face turned into surprise. Because the Naruto in front of him suddenly turned into a white smoke in the next moment, and the next moment, the white smoke suddenly shot several kunai, and flew towards the 3rd generation at several extremely tricky angles. The figure of the 3rd generation hurriedly dodged to one side, but at this time, another Naruto rushed out of nowhere, and the Naruto rushed towards the 3 generations who were dodging. At the same time, Rasengan was constantly gathering in his hands. The sound of the east and the west. Sandai's expression couldn't help but be startled, because he was attracted by the few kunai that suddenly flew out from behind the white smoke. Before he could stop Naruto rushing up from behind, he was already close to him. The powerful spiral energy came to Sandai in an instant, and saw that the 3rd generation was directly hit by Rasengan. Boom! With a loud bang, Sandai's figure was instantly knocked out, but with another bang, Sandai's body that was being blown away turned into a cloud of white smoke. Sure enough, it's Shadow Clone. Naruto had a warning sign when he saw the white smoke, because at this time, the other 3 generations immediately attacked Naruto after seeing his clone being eliminated. Kaden Fire Style Great Fireball Jutsu. I saw a huge fireball sprayed out of Sandai's mouth in an instant, and flew towards Naruto who had just used Rasengan. The fireball is not very big, but its momentum is amazing. Just the hot air wave has already opened a ravine in the soil under the fireball. However, Naruto stood there, motionless, and let the fireball annihilate him. Boom! The flames instantly filled half of the training ground, and under the strong air waves, 3 representatives were serious and stared at the flames. But at this moment, a faint laughter suddenly appeared behind him. 3 generations old man, you lost. At the same time, a sharp kunai was placed around his neck. The face of the 3rd generation changed, and he hurriedly turned his head, looking at Naruto in surprise. When did you come behind me? That's just one of my clones. When you attacked my clone, I had already approached you. Naruto replied with a slight smile. After speaking, he slowly retracted his kunai. Okay, Naruto, your use of Shadow Clone has reached the point where I'll be successful even if I'm not paying attention. The third generation looked at Naruto with an extremely relieved look in his eyes. Suddenly, there was a slight seal in his hand, and with a bang, his figure turned into a cloud of white smoke. An old voice came from a corner of the training ground, with a hint of indescribable joy in the voice. Naruto, even my 30% strength clone has been defeated, it seems that I still underestimate you. Chapter 44 Unwilling. Naruto pouted and said dissatisfiedly, "Cut, the 3-generation old man, you actually sent a clone to fight me." Hee, Naruto, although it's just my clone, your current strength is beyond that of an ordinary Jonin. Even if you are an elite Jonin, you're only short of experience. The 3 generations smiled, walked up, and patted him. Shoulders. Naruto smiled slightly. In fact, he still has many trump cards that are useless, such as the power of immortals in the state of the curse mark. This power cannot be well controlled by himself, so in ordinary competitions, he will not use it. Yes, if the one just now was the body of the 3rd generation, perhaps Naruto would really use this power. But it's not needed now. After the two of them fought, they left the training ground. Sandai did not go back to the Hokage office, but walked around Konoha with Naruto at random, explaining to Naruto some problems in the battle just now. Based on his old experience, point out some shortcomings to Naruto. Naruto was also very humbly educated, and seriously reflected on it. He also benefited a lot in his heart. The two walked, chatting and laughing, and the 3 generations did not have the air of Hokage at all. The old man made Naruto feel extra relaxed, and unconsciously, the relationship between the two became deeper and deeper. Okay, it's almost time, I should go back, Naruto. After a while, Sandai finally said. Well, the 3rd generation old man, you go. I should go back to continue training. Naruto nodded. It's really hard work, now I finally know why you are so powerful. Sandai smiled with relief. Before leaving, Sandai suddenly turned around and asked, Naruto, isn't Konoha a good place? Naruto was stunned for a moment and said, well, yes, what's wrong? Nothing, I want you to promise me one thing. What's the matter? Naruto faintly noticed something in his heart. If one day, old man, I don't have the strength to protect Konoha, will you protect it for me? Sandai said in a serious tone. Sure enough, Naruto smiled slightly, no problem. As long as I'm still alive, I won't let such a beautiful village suffer. With your words, I feel at ease. Sandai's face showed an extremely relieved smile. He turned around, and finally left. Naruto shook his head and laughed, and walked towards the waterfall. He has no feelings for this village, but he has regarded it as his own place to live, just like his own territory, and naturally he will not let others destroy it. Although there are too many people in the village who look down on him and stay away from him, those people are just ignorant. Yi Luo returned to his roots. As a traveler, he didn't want to die of old age in another world. In the days that followed, Naruto entered the non-stop cultivation again, which was boring, but fortunately, Hinata always appeared on time every evening, accompanied Naruto, and the two of them ate, took a walk, and had a good time. Interesting, and Naruto can't help but like the feeling of teasing cute little Hinata from time to time. Konoha Village, near a rocky mountain, a ninja with a face mask and only one listless eye and a girl are standing in front of a rock that is as high as a person. These two are Kakashi and Suzuki. Kakashi, are you finally going to teach me that art? Sayu looked at Kakashi eagerly. Kakashi said with a serious expression, your attributes are thunder and fire, and you also have Sharingan. It is very suitable for my Reikiri to teach you, but you have to promise me a request. What request? Learn this ninja technique, you must not use it on your companions. Zuoyu frowned when she heard this, her face seemed to be struggling a bit, and it took a long time before she said, isn't it okay to learn from each other? Kakashi shook his head and smiled, I know you're trying to defeat Naruto, right? Zoe nodded. Give it up, Kakashi said lightly, Naruto is not something you can beat. Why? Upon hearing Kakashi's words, Zuluyu jumped up like a kitten with its tail tucked in, and shouted unwillingly, I must defeat that guy. Is it that important to defeat him? Sasuke, Kakashi asked rhetorically, it doesn't matter what your goal is, right? Zuluyu was stunned, but she had a strong feeling in her heart. She has always been the number one among her peers, but Naruto's power has subverted her status. She is not reconciled. If even Naruto can't be defeated, then what's the point of defeating that man? She wants to go above and beyond, kill that man, and revive the Uchiha clan. Okay, Zuluyu, don't think about this anymore. Naruto is practicing hard all the time. What you should do now is to practice harder than him, right? That kind of competitive thinking, leave it alone, Kakashi advised. When Zuluyu heard this, she had no choice but to nod her head, but her heart was full of dissatisfaction. Chapter 45 On the Road. Before I knew it, a month had passed. On this day, Naruto got up and went to practice as usual. As soon as he went out, he was stopped by a clear female voice. Naruto, I am here, Kakashi-sensei asked us to gather at the training ground number 9. It turned out to be Sakura. Sakura, I'll be right here. Naruto responded, closed the door, and ran over quickly. Compared to a few days ago, Sakura looked in a very good mood today, with a sweet smile on her face all the time. What's wrong? Is there anything Sakura is happy about? Naruto, you've seen it all. Yesterday I applied to join the medical class, and I got passed. Sakura said with a smile. That's really congratulations, shouldn't it be time for a dinner? Naruto also joked with a slight smile. Well, of course, I can call Sakura together then. Oh, yes, Kakashi-sensei told us to hurry up, we're going to be late. Sakura ran quickly. Naruto followed behind her, and after a while, the two finally arrived at their destination. Two familiar figures appeared in front, one tall and the other short. It was Kakashi and Sayu. Naruto hadn't seen Zuluyu for nearly a month. Seeing her standing there quietly, he stepped forward to say hello. Yo, Zuluyu, long time no see. How is your practice with Kakashi-sensei? When Zuluyu heard this, she turned her head, curled her lips slightly, and snorted softly, HMPH, just wait and see. Seeing her dissatisfaction with Naruto, Kakashi shook his head and laughed, clapped his hands and raised his voice. I have a piece of news for you. Today is the day when Konoha holds the Chunin exam, and I called you here just to ask a question. Do you want to participate in your opinion? Of course I want to participate. Zuluyu knew the news for a long time, and she answered first, and then stared at Naruto, as if she would not give up if Naruto didn't agree. Naruto nodded. I will participate too. Then what about you, Sakura? Kakashi looked at Sakura after the two finished their expressions. Sakura hesitated a little, and seeing the two companions were very interested, she had no choice but to nod, but she was a little unsure. To the Chunin exam hall, all kinds of ninjas kept appearing, and the three of Naruto were also going to sign up. Along the way, Sakura looked around curiously. Sasuke had a cold and unconcerned expression, and Naruto lowered his head in deep thought. In this Chunin exam, what should he do in the face of the impending Konoha collapse plan? His original plan was to follow the script of the original book, but since he got the curse seal and realized the power of immortals that day, he always had the idea of breaking all of this. While thinking about it, a rude voice suddenly came from the front. Little devil, you bumped into me, you know. Hurry down and apologize to me. The young voice resisted loudly. Let me go, my grandfather is Hokage, if you dare to touch me, I will die. It was Konoha Maru. Oh, Hokage. Kankuro glanced at him in surprise. He didn't expect it to be Hokage's grandson, but what about Hokage's grandson? Just a stinky brat like you would be Hokage's grandson. Haha, how dare you lie to me, see if I don't teach you a good lesson. Hey, stop it. Sakura saw this scene, and immediately rushed up, pushed Kankuro away, snatched the Konoha pill from his hand, and glared at him. Who are you? Bullying children like this, aren't things boring? Haha, we are the ninjas of Sand Ninja Village. Where are you running out of? Dare to get in my way. Kankuro stood still, but when he met a cute girl who was wearing Konoha's forehead guard. You, too arrogant, this is Konoha. There's no room for you to bully people here. Sakura exclaimed angrily. At this time, Naruto and Sasu also came over. Seeing the rescued Konoha Maru, Naruto pulled him behind him and said, Konoha Maru, are you alright? I'm fine, big brother Naruto. This guy dares to look down on me and teach him a good lesson for me. Konoha Maru saw Naruto coming, and he spoke with confidence. I have to say that Konoha Maru didn't know Naruto originally, because Naruto didn't invent a good lure as in the original book, and got acquainted with him by coincidence, but these days, due to the reason that the three generations have played against Naruto several times, Konoha Maru happened to meet him on one occasion. At that time, he deeply admired how Naruto could fight with his grandfather when he was only 12 years old. Naruto works hard for the goal. Naruto shook his head and laughed, turned his eyes, saw the tense atmosphere between Kankuro and Sakura, and seemed to be fighting. He knew that Sakura was not Kankuro's opponent, so he stepped forward and stopped in front of Sakura. Right, Kankuro said lightly, if you want to fight, I will accompany you, don't shoot at women. Hearing this, Sakura immediately felt a sense of being protected. Looking at Naruto's back, she couldn't help being dazed. Cut, here comes another self-righteous kid. Kankuro was very upset at Naruto's pretending tone, thinking that this kid dared to pretend in front of him, so he had to show him some color. Kankuro's fingers moved slightly, and instantly a chakras shot out of his fingers, shooting towards Naruto's knees. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly, his feet moved slightly, his body did not move, but he had avoided his attack, with a faint smile on his face, so the ninjas in Sand Ninja Village are just guys who can sneak attacks. Kankuro missed a hit and was dodged lightly. He lost face and glared at Naruto. The next moment, he undid the mummy-like thing wrapped around his back. Stabbed hard on the ground. It seems that you can't do it without showing some real strength. Kankuro smiled evilly. At this time, the yellow-haired girl holding a huge fan who had been silent all the time beside him suddenly said, Kankuro, don't be impulsive. Chapter 46 Challenge. Tamari, why don't you want me to teach this guy a good lesson? Kankuro glared at Tamari in dissatisfaction after hearing this. Tamari said lightly, this is Konoha Village, don't make a fool of yourself, and if Gaara finds out, you will die. Very miserable. Gaara. When the name was mentioned, Kankuro shuddered suddenly, recalling the horror of the guy. He quickly calmed down the thoughts just now, but at this moment, Gaara suddenly appeared in the crowd with a swoosh. Before. Sand instant body art. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at this young man with brown hair and two dark circles under his eyes who just appeared. The huge sand gourd behind him was particularly noticeable. At this time, Gaara was staring at Naruto coldly. What's your name? I'm very interested in you. Naruto heard this. He curled his lips and said, no, I have no interest in men. Tamari, who was behind him, laughed. When Naruto said these words, the heavy atmosphere at the scene disappeared. Gaara glared at him with anger on his face. Sakura and Zuoyu also felt amused secretly. Naruto is also quite humorous sometimes. This kid is funny, Tamari thought to himself. However, she also saw Gaara's dark face, so she didn't dare to laugh anymore, and hurriedly restrained her expression. Gaara stared at Naruto quietly, as if to see through him, but Naruto ignored him and said to Sakura, who was beside him, let's go, we'll be late if we don't go. Oh, good. Sakura hurriedly responded, and followed Naruto out of the scene with Sasuke, but when he turned to leave, Naruto still told Gaara his name. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Chunin has to be merciful during the exam. Quote. Gaara's face looked better now, and the next moment, he, Tamari and Kankuro headed towards the destination. So that blonde kid taught Uzumaki Naruto. Tamari murmured. He looks very powerful, but he was able to dodge Konkuro's sneak attack so easily just now. Che, that's just luck. Watch me teach Chunin a good lesson during the exam. Konkuro snorted in disapproval. Don't be careless, Konkuro, I can feel that guy is very strong. Gaara, who has been silent for a while, said. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark. Temari and Konkuro couldn't help being surprised when they heard it. Even Gaara, a monster-like strongman, said that the other party was strong, so it must be right. However, I think the black-haired girl next to the blonde boy is also very powerful. She seems to be from the Uchiha family, a famous Konoha family, right? She seems to be the last orphan. Temari pondered. It seems that Konoha really is not simple. HMPH, I'll be more interested then. Gaara got excited. When they came to the hall where the examination room was located, the three Naruto were stared at by many genins as soon as they entered the door. Because of Sayu's relationship, both men and women looked at them. As for Naruto, although they also felt there have been some changes, but it is still not as high as Zuo-Yu's attention. Then, after the little demonic illusion in the examination room was solved, Little Lee also jumped out like the original and confessed to Sakura. Sakura refused, and hid behind Naruto, being too enthusiastic for Little Lee. White's way was terrifying. By Sakura, Naruto had no choice but to stand up and smile at Little Lee. I think we should go to the exam first, don't waste time here. I agree. Tenten, who was losing face because of Little Lee, came up and pulled him back, saying, Little Lee, which nerve is wrong with you? Why don't you go? Don't pull me. Tenten. Little Lee broke Tenten's hands, ran to Naruto, glanced at Sakura who was standing behind Naruto, and said to Naruto, I want to challenge you. Huh. Naruto was stunned. This Little Lee was really looking for trouble. Naruto couldn't help but feel helpless. According to the plot of the original novel, wouldn't Little Lee be going to challenge Zuo-Yu? He didn't know that Little Lee would challenge him because Sakura was hiding behind him. Seeing that Sakura seemed to be relying on Naruto, of course Little Lee was not happy. I want to challenge you. Little Lee said seriously again. I'll see it. Naruto waved his hand and turned around. If you want to fight me, there is a chance. Now it's better to sign up first. Don't go. Look at the fist. Little Lee didn't expect Naruto to leave like this. He was anxious, but he didn't care about anything and punched him directly. The speed was so fast that it was a sight to behold. Naruto had already heard the voice behind his head. He was about to turn around, but saw a figure flashing beside him. Zuo-Yu suddenly shot, and slammed into Little Lee's fist. But Zuo-Yu is also secretly shocked. This guy is really strong. Huh, are you Uchiha Zuo-Yu, the genius of this freshman class? Then come and fight me. When Little Lee saw it was Zuo-Yu, he immediately became excited, challenging geniuses, which has always been his favorite thing. Because his creed is that hard work must surpass genius. Zuo-Yu didn't say a word, but after feeling the power of Xiaoli, she was also very moved, and really wanted to have a fight with him. So, the two jumped directly to the center of the hall and competed face to face. Seeing that things had developed like this, Naruto couldn't help shaking his head helplessly. At this time, the genins who came to sign up all gathered around to watch the fun. Tenten and Neji also stood by, and didn't mean to stop them. They are very confident in Lee's strength, and they are also very curious about Uchiha Sasu, a talented freshman. This time, it's time for Little Lee to try her strength. The battle was about to break out, and the two present were staring at each other with serious expressions. Chapter 47 First Round. I'm going, Little Lee shouted in a low voice. His body was slightly shorter, and he kicked his feet sharply. In an instant, his figure flew towards Zuo-Yu like a flying arrow. Zuo-Yu only felt a flower in front of her eyes, and the next moment she saw Little Lee appearing in front of her. She was shocked. However, her strength has also improved greatly. After learning Chidori from Kakashi, her speed has also improved rapidly. He stretched out his hand to fight, but suddenly it was empty, his eyes suddenly darkened, and a familiar back came into view. It was the dazzling blonde hair. Naruto. The onlookers were shocked. What a great speed. This is an instant technique that only Jonin can use. Little Lee also looked shocked, because Naruto's teleportation technique was too fast. Even he could only see a shadow, but Sakura next to him couldn't even see Naruto's movement trajectory. Naruto, why are you interfering in our battle? Little Lee shouted. If that's the case, let you be my opponent. Zuiyu also had a tight face, and was very unhappy with Naruto's sudden intervention, and muttered in her mouth, "Humph. Pushy guy." Naruto ignored the words of the two. He pointed to the side and said, "You two, look, what time is it now? If you keep fighting, you will be late and won't be able to enter the arena. Teacher Kakashi and Teacher Guy are watching." Quote. Little Lee heard the words and looked to the side, and sure enough, Guy was staring at him, while Kakashi was leaning over there indifferently. Seeing Naruto and the others looking over together, Kakashi waved his hand and said, "If you want to learn from each other, there is time, and the first exam will start in 5 minutes, so why don't you hurry in?" Cut. What a disappointment. Zuoyu curled her lips when she heard the words, and left with a displeased face. Little Lee can only give up. So the three of Naruto walked towards the classroom for the first exam. Behind them, Neji and Tenten and Little Lee's group looked at Naruto's back with a look of interest. This Uzumaki Naruto didn't seem to be very prominent in this freshman, but I just saw his skills. I think he must be hiding his strength. There are more and more opponents worth challenging. Neji murmured. Neji, Uzumaki Naruto's speed is so fast. Did he use the teleportation technique just now? Tenten on the side asked curiously. Neji nodded. That's right, that is indeed the instant technique of Jonin's talent master. Really? Isn't this guy amazing? Tenten listened, looking at Naruto even more curiously. You bastard, I will remember what happened just now. As he was about to enter the examination room, Sayu suddenly said to Naruto, "You owe me a fight, next time you will be my opponent." Naruto was stunned for a moment, turned his head to see the serious look on Zuoyu's face, shook his head and laughed, and had no choice but to say, "Don't be so serious, let's talk about it next time." Seeing Naruto's insufferable appearance, Zuoyu's eyebrows were raised, and she suddenly sneered, "Then you will be the one." Naruto suddenly couldn't help laughing and crying. This tone was too bandit-like. Could it be that she seemed to be forced to come? The three of them entered the examination room, and Zuoyu stopped investigating because she had no time to pursue it. In front of the three of them was the entire classroom full of ninjas. The elites from various villages were all looking at each other at this time. Gathered on Naruto, who had just entered the door. Ino, who was already there, saw that his good sister Sakura was coming, and immediately waved at her. "Sakura, I'm here, why are you coming so slowly?" Sakura saw it and ran over immediately. Naruto, Sasuke and the two slowly followed. Naruto's eyes swept away slightly, but he saw a pair of eyes staring at him in the crowd. He nodded slightly towards her and showed a kind smile. Naruto slowly walked over and sat down beside her. "What a coincidence, my seat is next to you, Hinata," Naruto said with a smile. "Yeah, Naruto-kun, do your best for this exam." Hinata nodded lightly and whispered, "I heard that the first exam is a written exam 1 inch. I have no problem with the written test, how about you, Hinata? Would you like me to help you?" Naruto asked. "I'm fine," Hinata said, a little sweet in her heart. Naruto-kun is really gentle and considerate. While talking, the three little Lees also entered the examination room, and then the super spy Kabuto jumped out to show his intelligence ability to many newcomers, which immediately made everyone focus on those geniuses, Gaara, Neji, Sayu and others, but then Gaara asked about Naruto's information again. Kabuto took out a card after a little stunned, and read out Naruto's information. However, Naruto's information is very ordinary, and there is nothing outstanding at all, which makes many people puzzled. How can a genius like Gaara be interested in an ordinary character like Naruto? But there are also people who have witnessed Naruto's shot know that Naruto's information may be incomplete. After all, everyone will have their own secrets and cards. However, in this way, many people also secretly paid attention to Naruto. Next, the exam continued on its original track. Sayu relied on her Sharingan, and Sakura easily answered the exam with her solid basic knowledge. Just because Naruto is no longer the original Naruto, he did not cheat, but wrote the answer completely on his own strength, and under the intimidation of the examiner Morino Ibiki, he remained unmoved until finally passed with ease. Ibiki, you actually kept so many people this time. Just after the first game ended, a figure suddenly jumped in from the classroom window, and exclaimed carelessly, "This is a lot more than before. Come down in my exam room and I'll cut their numbers in half." Chapter 48 Encounter with a Serpent. At the entrance of the Death Forest, everyone who passed the first exam was eager to get together. Before Enko announced the exam rules, everyone didn't know the danger. Naruto stood looking at the expressions of everyone around him as if he were a bystander, with a smile that was not a smile on the corner of his mouth. "What are you laughing at?" Sakura asked with sharp eyes, seeing Naruto smiling so strangely. "It's nothing." Naruto turned his eyes, but saw Orochimaru disguised as Kusanagi in the crowd. At this time, he was staring at Sayu with interest, and the enthusiasm revealed in his eyes made him feel very uncomfortable. Zuiyu, on the other hand, didn't feel anything. She was still indifferent, unaware that the crisis was slowly approaching. "It looks like I have to be more careful this time, but it is still difficult to guard against Orochimaru with my own strength." Naruto was a little worried. Seeing Naruto's mysterious expression, Sakura pouted slightly. At this time, Enko finally announced the rules, and everyone entered the Forest of Death after taking the Scroll of Heaven and Earth. The three Naruto were the last group to enter. Enko reminded from a distance, "You must maintain your physical strength. This forest is full of enemies now. If you are a little careless, the scroll in your hand will not be a trivial matter. Don't even lose your life." "Well, thank you the examiner for reminding me." Naruto turned back and smiled, and with Sakura and the two of them, the figure gradually disappeared at the entrance of the forest. "Hehe, is this blonde kid the guy who was personally instructed by the 3 generations of adults?" "Don't die so easily," Enko murmured, and after speaking, she stretched lazily, and took out a piece from her pocket. The meatballs brought by the skewer package are eaten with relish. Compared with Enko's comfort and comfort, the 3 Naruto were in a state of tension all the time after entering the forest, especially Sakura. Listening to the faint fighting sounds nearby, they held Kuu tightly in their hands, fearful. Suddenly, someone jumped out of nowhere and attacked. For Naruto, there are few people who deserve his attention in this exam. Even Neji Gaara and the like, with his current strength, he doesn't have to worry at all. What he cares most about is Orochimaru's actions. After thinking for a while, Naruto directly separated out more than a dozen shadow clones, and dispersed them, heading towards various parts of the forest to collect information. Naruto's move immediately aroused Sayu's dissatisfaction. "Naruto, do you think you have too much chakra? What are you doing with so many shadow clone running around?" "Gather intelligence," Naruto replied. "I still have a lot of chakra, so don't worry about it." "HMPH, who said they were worried about you?" Zuoyu turned her head away and muttered, "Just don't hold me back." A day passed quickly, and Naruto felt a little strange, because Orochimaru did not appear, and there was no trace of him in the information obtained by the shadow clone he sent after disappearing. This guy Orochimaru is a poisonous snake hiding in the dark, and the 3 of them are now the prey under the sun, and Naruto suddenly has a bad premonition. At this moment, Sakura's exclamation suddenly came from behind. "Ah, it's a snake." Sakura suddenly jumped to Naruto's side, and pointed to the little snake that jumped right at her. The little snake was no bigger than a thumb, and Naruto frowned. There were many snakes in the forest, and he wasn't sure if Orochimaru was ready to act. "Don't be afraid, let's move on." Naruto waved kunai, cut the snake into 2 pieces, and said to Sakura. Only then, he was even more cautious. Just as he was concentrating on Orochimaru, who was guarding the dark place, 3 figures suddenly jumped out and stopped in the middle of the road. Sakura immediately became vigilant when she saw these ninjas who suddenly appeared, wearing the forehead of the grass ninja village, and Zuiyu's eyes brightened. She stepped forward and said coldly, "Hey, you guys, what scroll is it?" Since his side is the scroll of the earth, if the other party happens to be the scroll of the sky, he can take it directly, so Zuoyu stepped forward and asked them. The 3 of them stood there quietly and did not speak, but instead stared at the 3 of Naruto with a smile. Seeing this, Zuoyu was slightly angry and snorted coldly. Just as she was about to step forward to teach them a lesson, she saw Naruto suddenly reach out and stop her. "Sao, you step back," Naruto said solemnly. "These guys are not simple. If I read correctly, it's Orochimaru." Zuoyu was startled suddenly, and looked at the 3 people in surprise. And Sakura also whispered, "Orochimaru. Is it Orochimaru, one of the legendary Konoha Sannin? Didn't he defect to Konoha? How could they?" Before Sakura could finish speaking, Kusanagi, the leader of the 3, licked his lips, looked at Naruto's excited eyes, and said with a weird smile, "Kyubi, Nine-Tails, kid, I didn't expect you to recognize it so quickly. Get out of me, last time you ruined my good deeds, this time you have to pay it back." He smeared his face, and the original unfamiliar face suddenly turned into Orochimaru's pale and feminine face. A pair of snake pupils continued to emit shadowy eyes. At the same time, a powerful and unparalleled aura emanated from Orochimaru's body. Naruto was slightly startled, and hurriedly shouted to Sakura and Sasu, "Go back." However, at this time, Sakura and Sayu were already forced by Orochimaru's powerful momentum, and they stood there dazed and trembling all over. Yu was better, but she was also full of cold sweat, and her face was full of struggle. "It's really bad." Naruto didn't expect these 2 guys to be so imposing and oppressive, so Sakura was nothing, even Suzuki who had already learned Kakashi Chidori. "Go backwards." However, Orochimaru, who was on the opposite side, did not miss this opportunity at all. He was like a poisonous snake, looking at the space where Naruto could not move his hands, opened his mouth, and a long tongue flew out. Rolled towards Naruto's waist. Chapter 49 Fight. I didn't expect Orochimaru to be so despicable, that he would even start with a genin junior of his own, and Naruto was quite ashamed. But there was no time for him to think more at the moment. At the critical moment, Naruto twisted his waist slightly, avoiding Orochimaru's tongue. However, Orochimaru's attack is not so simple. Just after Naruto dodged, the dexterous long tongue turned in an instant, and actually rolled Sayu on Naruto's left hand. At this time, Zuiyu was still at a loss. She didn't react until she was dragged by Orochimaru in front of her. She gave a heavy drink. Stimulated by this sudden crisis, she finally got rid of Orochimaru's momentum and immediately opened her eyes. Sharingan, Kakunai stabbed Orochimaru's body with his backhand. "It's beyond your own power." Orochimaru smiled, reaching out and lightly grabbing Sayu's wrist. Sayu couldn't move when he landed, and his waist was wrapped by his tongue. He actually controlled the whole person in his hands. When Naruto saw this situation, he couldn't help but feel anxious. While scolding Orochimaru for being mean, he flew towards Orochimaru directly, using the speed of his whole body to the fastest speed, as if a golden streak flashed in the air. The shadow, in the blink of an eye, was in front of Orochimaru. Orochimaru didn't expect Naruto's speed to be so fast. This level of speed is comparable to that of a strong man who specializes in physical art. At this time, he was also controlling Sasu with one hand, and his tongue was also sticking. If he didn't come out, he couldn't hand seal with only one hand, so he couldn't fight back at all, but he didn't worry. Just when Naruto was about to cut Orochimaru's tongue with kunai, he suddenly stuck out next to him. A kunai clanked off Naruto's slash. Naruto turned his head to look, his eyes narrowed slightly, but saw one of the 2 Kusanagi beside Orochimaru blocking him. The man's entire face was wrapped under a face towel, but the pair of large round glasses suddenly revealed his identity. Yakushi Kabuto. Naruto failed to hit, and immediately turned around and went behind Orochimaru, but at this time, Kabuto suddenly turned around and waved his arm violently, and a light green light flashed from his palm, cutting straight to Naruto. Human neck. In a desperate situation, Naruto swooped down to avoid his chakra scalpel, backflipped a distance, and retreated to Sakura's side. Only in this way, he can no longer get close to Orochimaru's body. After calming his breath, Naruto stood up straight and mocked Orochimaru lightly. As one of the Sannin, Orochimaru-sama, you have to make a sneak attack on a genin like me, so it seems that you have no more power than that. Orochimaru just smiled faintly, looked down at Sasuke who was struggling constantly, and ignored Naruto's words, but Kabuto retorted, how can a kid like you understand Orochimaru's measure? You should go first. Hit me and talk. Kabuto rushed over. His hands were covered with green light. As long as he was rubbed by these green chakras, the muscle meridians in his body would be cut off. Naruto didn't have time to think about it. He couldn't be careless about a ninja like Kabuto, otherwise he would definitely lose. Suddenly, he glanced at a big tree not far away, and he thought about it. Facing Kabuto's attack against him, Naruto just kept backing up and dealing with him. Kabuto is worthy of being Orochimaru's right-hand man. His strength made Naruto too tired to deal with it, and he was beaten to nothing for a while. Fight back. Sakura on the side was finally awakened by the fierce battle in the field, but she was still shaking slightly at this time. Watching Naruto's situation getting more and more critical, she could only watch worriedly, but she had nothing to do. You are so useless. Sakura had never hated herself so much in her heart. And at this moment, when Sakura was already feeling desperate, a sharp blade piercing through the air suddenly came from behind Orochimaru. The next moment, a kunai shot towards Orochimaru's back from a tricky angle. Orochimaru stood there, but only smiled slightly at the sudden attack. After hiding for so long, I can't help coming out. Little Anko. As he muttered to himself, a graceful figure suddenly descended from midair. It was Anko. I saw frost on her face, and her hands kept hand seal. Orochimaru, what are you doing here again? Ninja hidden shadow snake hand. A group of serpents suddenly flew away from her sleeves, and opened their mouths to bite at the vital parts of Orochimaru's body. But Orochimaru did not panic. He seemed to have expected Anko to have such a hand. A disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He waved his empty arm in an instant, and likewise drilled out several large snakes from his sleeves and stopped them respectively. Anko's offensive. Orochimaru knew nothing about Anko who had been taught firsthand, and he didn't care about her attack at all. However, at this time, the sudden change was born. Was originally with Kabuto, suddenly burst out with a powerful momentum, and suddenly a golden light flashed. In the next moment, Kabuto, who had not had time to deal with Naruto's sudden momentum change, quickly took a step back, but unexpectedly this step just fit Naruto's mind. I saw the next moment, after Naruto used the curse mark, his body almost turned into a golden light, and he rushed in the other direction in an instant. The target is exactly Orochimaru. At this time, Orochimaru was dealing with Anko's attack. He had to control Sasuke and resist Anko. Although he had already noticed Naruto's movements, Naruto's speed was too fast at this time, even if he had already noticed it. But in this moment, it was too late to dodge. The other Kusanagi next to him was just about to come over to help Orochimaru resist Naruto, but just as he moved, he was blasted out by Naruto. Immediately afterwards, Naruto continued to blast Orochimaru's face with unabated momentum. Chapter 50 Curse Mark. The fist of the surging chakra that contains the immortal power of the curse seal. Even if there is a stone wall in front of him, he can break it. Although Orochimaru is known to be immortal, it is definitely not good to be hit by this punch, so at this time, there was no other way but to let go of the tongue that wrapped Sayu's body and rolled it towards Naruto's arm. It was just at this moment that Zuo-Yu, who had been under control for a long time, finally had the opportunity to fight back. She stared. Sharingan launched demonic illusion. This level of demonic illusion has no effect on Orochimaru at all. At most it only makes him a little dazed. However, as long as there is this slight trance time, it is enough for Naruto. The next moment, I saw that his figure suddenly turned into a golden light, the speed increased again, and it exploded, avoiding Orochimaru's tongue in the blink of an eye, and a short figure had appeared under his armpit. Boom! Rasengan. Rasengan, driven by the immortal power of the curse seal, made an extremely huge roar. For a moment, everyone only felt a blue light shining in front of them. Then, a strong hurricane broke out, which directly slammed Orochimaru's body. It flew out, and Suzuki and Anko, who were beside Orochimaru, fell backward. Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto exclaimed. He couldn't imagine that the invincible Lord Orochimaru would be knocked into the air by a little devil. Uzumaki Naruto, this little devil is so powerful when he uses the magic seal. Incredible. In fact, the original curse imprint carried Orochimaru's consciousness, so the curse imprint was not completely controlled by humans, and in Naruto's curse imprint, the spiritual energy of Orochimaru has been removed, and the only remaining is the pure natural immortal power, and, with the help of this natural immortal power, Naruto's own potential has also been stimulated, so that when he is using the spell seal, he can already sense the natural power of nature, but this the power and the power generated by the spell itself are slightly different. But he couldn't figure it out for a while, but the power of nature is really powerful. Naruto stood quietly, with a faint golden light emitting from his body, looming, which made him seem like a god descended from the earth, which made Anko and Sakura on the side stare blankly. Zuo-Yu was in a very complicated mood at the moment. She was once again saved by Naruto, and the strength Naruto showed at this time was far beyond her reach. Just by staying by his side, she was already affected by that kind of strength. The powerful aura made it a little hard to breathe. In comparison, the momentum that Orochimaru showed just now was not as good as Naruto. And Anko didn't even think that Naruto, an unremarkable guy, could actually knock Orochimaru out. She knows Orochimaru's strength the most. It is absolutely Kage level. A special Jonin of her own is not enough to see in front of him. And Naruto is just a genin, but he has done something that even a Jonin can't do. This made her full of surprises and sighed inwardly. The guy who was valued by the 3 generations was really extraordinary. In the smoke-filled ruins, Orochimaru's figure gradually became clear, and I saw that his clothes were all tattered at this time, and the flesh in his abdomen was directly twisted into blood by the spiral energy. Fortunately, he was not directly penetrated, otherwise the body is broken again. Orochimaru looked at Naruto with a gloomy expression on his face. Kabuto held him with one hand, also looking at Naruto with a look of horror. Uzumaki Naruto, it's really unexpected. My curse mark gives you the power to hurt me, and today you have become my biggest obstacle. However, Uchiha Sasu, I am bound to win. You want to stop me if you want, just come. Orochimaru finished speaking, opened his mouth, and suddenly another Orochimaru spurted out of his mouth. It was the Orochimaru-style substitute technique. Orochimaru that rushed out of his mouth was fast, and he rushed towards Suzuki regardless. Humph! Naruto snorted coldly. Orochimaru actually dared to go over him and attack Sayu directly. This is absolutely not allowed by him. The figure flashed, and the next moment Naruto also rushed directly to Orochimaru. A Rasengan condensed in his hand again, and slammed into his body. However, Orochimaru ignored Naruto's attack and let his Rasengan hit him. Boom! There was another shock, and Naruto pushed Orochimaru's body directly over several large trees, and finally slammed into a rock. However, after a short while, Naruto's expression changed, because when he wanted to withdraw his arm, he found that his arm was firmly motionless. His 2 pairs of arms were tightly clasping his hands, and his neck suddenly stretched out, and he flew behind Naruto with his head. There, it is Zuo-Yu. Damn! Naruto scolded secretly, and hurriedly shouted, Anko, hurry up and protect Sayu. However, there was a dull snort from Zoe behind him. Orochimaru let go of Naruto's arms, retracted his head, licked his lips, and couldn't help laughing. Naruto's figure flashed and he quickly came to Sayu's side, seeing her kneeling on the ground with one hand covering her neck and her face full of pain, while on the other side, Enko was being held back by Kabuto. Seeing this situation, Naruto sighed and said to Orochimaru, "Jang is still old and hot." Orochimaru stood up and covered his abdomen with his hands. Although his face was covered in cold sweat, his expression was full of happiness. He glanced at Sayu, who was moaning in pain, and said to Guy with a smile, "Uzumaki Naruto, what I gave it's a good thing. If it weren't for my curse mark, would you have the power you have now? Don't you want to share this power with your companions? You are really selfish." Hearing Orochimaru's words, Sasu, who was in pain, couldn't help but look up at Naruto and finally fainted. Facing Orochimaru's words, Naruto frowned, and when Orochimaru said that, Zuyu would definitely have a quarrel with herself. With her stubborn head, she would definitely be led by Orochimaru's nose. "Orochimaru, you have won this time. But next, you have to prepare. I will never let you have a better time." Naruto is really angry now. Orochimaru actually gave Zuo under his own eyelids you planted the curse mark, which made him full of self-blame and guilt for a while, and swore in his heart that he would recover this debt. Chapter 51 is bright. The three of Orochimaru fled quickly, and even if Naruto had the power of the spell, they couldn't keep him, let alone Sakura and Anko. At this moment, one was in shock, the other was helpless. It wasn't until Orochimaru left that Anko came back to his senses. She hurriedly lifted Sayu from the ground and called her a few times. Zuyu snorted and woke up. Those big black eyes were now full of exhaustion and pain. Even Naruto would have fainted due to the erosion of the curse mark. If it wasn't for Orochimaru's consciousness being obliterated in the consciousness space, and quickly controlled the immortal power of the curse seal, I am afraid that he is similar to the current Zuo-yu. "Zhao Yu, how are you?" Sakura came over at this time, with deep anxiety, worry and self-blame on her face. If it wasn't for her being too useless, everyone wouldn't be so miserable. Zuyu looked around diligently, and when she saw Naruto beside her, she suddenly struggled to stand up. Naruto looked at her with some puzzlement. "Zuo-yu, you should take a rest. Don't continue this exam, let the medical ninja in the village help you." Zuyu suddenly smiled and covered the curse mark on her shoulder with her hand. The next moment, a powerful chakra suddenly appeared on her body. She looked at Naruto and said inspiringly, "Naruto, the power is so powerful. Is this the power Orochimaru speaks of? You've always been hiding such power, no wonder you've become so powerful. But I feel like I'll be able to beat you now." Feeling the Orochimaru chakra on Zuo-yu's body, Naruto couldn't help frowning. "Zuo-yu, you can't rely on this power, hurry up and suppress it." Anko on the side listened to Naruto's words and said in a timely manner, "Yeah, this guy Orochimaru is definitely not a good person. The appearance of this curse mark on you will make you a tool for him step by step, and you must never go back. Used." However, Sayu smiled disapprovingly and looked at Naruto with a dissatisfied expression. "No, with strength, I can realize my dream, Naruto, I really want to try now. Let's fight." Before she could finish speaking, an extremely strong fighting intent erupted in Zuyu's eyes, and her white face was also covered with black spells and runes, which looked extremely evil. Naruto wanted to persuade him again, but Zuyu suddenly threw a punch and slammed into Naruto's face. Anko saw this, his figure flashed, he immediately blocked in front of Naruto, stopped Sayu's offensive, and said to Naruto, "Uzumaki Naruto, she has lost her mind, I will stop him, you hit her quickly Halo." Naruto shook his head helplessly, and was about to start when suddenly Anko groaned. A flash of electric light flashed, Naruto's face changed, a flash appeared behind Zuo-yu, with a wave of his arm, a hand knife cut on Zuo-yu's jade neck, stunned her, and then fixed her eyes on Anko, only to see an astonishing Yuhi color appearing on her chest. It was Sayu who took advantage of Enko's speech and used Chidori to injure Enko. Fortunately, Enko is also a special Jonin, who is not weak, and avoided the key point, but was scratched by the electric light of Chidori, and a hole was opened in the chest. Seeing this, Sakura couldn't help but let out a soft cry, and hurriedly stepped forward to check. Enko put his hands on his chest and shook his head to Sakura to indicate that it was okay, but his face was slightly sweaty. Seeing that Naruto had stunned Sakura, he breathed a sigh of relief. It's really careless, I didn't expect she learned Kakashi's trick. It happened. With such a major matter, I have to report to Lord Hokage right now, and Zuiyu will be taken care of by you, and I will go to the tower soon. After you arrive there, the situation of Zuiyu will be dealt with further. Naruto supported the fainted Sasu and nodded. Okay, I'll leave it to me here, you can hurry up, by the way, bandage the wound first, Sakura. Sakura hurriedly opened the medical bandage in the package he was carrying and handed it to Enko. After Enko took it, he showed a grateful smile to the two of them, and blamed himself. I didn't expect that I, the examiner, would have to accept your help in the end, but, Uzumaki Naruto, I'm becoming more and more interested in you. Oh. Naruto was stunned, but Enko had already turned and left. Shaking his head slightly, Naruto looked up at the sky. The surroundings were already dark, and it was almost dark. Sakura, it seems that we have to find a place to rest tonight, and we will be on our way tomorrow morning. It is easy to ambush at night, Naruto said after thinking for a while. Well, I'll listen to you. Sakura was completely out of his mind at this time, and left everything to Naruto. Then let's find a place first. In the dark forest, a bonfire was quietly lit, illuminating all the silence around. Naruto and Sakura sat around the bonfire, talking in a low voice, while in the space between them, Sayu quietly lying there, she hadn't woken up yet. Are the alarm settings okay? Naruto asked. Yeah, Sakura nodded slightly. A drowsiness suddenly surged up. There were too many things happening in one day, and it was beyond her tolerance. At this moment, she was physically and mentally exhausted. I really want to sleep well. It would be great if I was at home now. Seeing that Sakura kept dozing off, but still had to endure the look of cheering up, Naruto advised, you can sleep for a while, and leave it to me to watch the night here. When Sakura heard this, her spirit was immediately shocked. She suddenly raised her head to look at Naruto and said, Naruto, am I so useless? When Orochimaru came, I was so frightened that I couldn't move. Upon hearing this question, and seeing her negative self-denial look, Naruto smiled and shook his head. Nothing, in fact, this time it was purely an accident, we were not beaten by an opponent like Orochimaru. I've been lucky enough to get rid of it. But, Sakura wanted to say you couldn't knock Orochimaru away. On the other hand, he was so frightened that he couldn't move. In comparison, he was really useless. Okay, Sakura. Naruto put his hands on Sakura's shoulders and smiled. People are always growing, and only by constantly struggling in difficult situations and experiencing the powerlessness will they realize their own inadequacies. If you realize your weakness now, then in the future, I believe that you will be stronger than you are now. You know, so don't worry about it. What you have to do now is to get a good night's sleep. Leave everything to me, come on. There was a bright smile on his face, reflecting the firelight, and at this moment, Sakura almost felt that it was not night, but the bright day. Naruto. In an instant, Sakura couldn't help sobbing, and couldn't help but threw herself into Naruto's arms, sobbing. Chapter 52 reacts strangely. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly, hugged Sakura's soft body, and comforted. Okay, don't cry, be strong, as a ninja, you can't be so weak. Sakura was crying non-stop in Naruto's arms at this time, but she felt very relieved. Naruto's arms didn't expect to be so warm. She suddenly felt a little reluctant to leave, listening to Naruto's gentle consolation in her ears. At this moment, her heart melted. Parents once said that you must never approach Uzumaki Naruto, and there have always been rumors that Naruto is a monster in the village, but at this moment, Sakura has put this thought aside, and she will never believe these words anymore. Gradually, she fell into a deep sleep, showing a sweet smile in Naruto's arms. Feeling that her crying had stopped and her breathing had gradually stabilized, Naruto could only continue to sit on the spot holding her tender body for a while. I was thinking about how to deal with Orochimaru this time. With his own strength, he was no weaker than him in terms of chakra strength, and even in terms of momentum, Orochimaru might not be able to match himself, but no matter what. Whether it is the control of power, the knowledge of ninjutsu, or the experience of fighting, these Naruto are far less than Orochimaru. He has no doubt that if the two have a life and death duel, the probability of winning is less than 30%. Just as he was in a trance, Naruto suddenly turned his head and looked to the side, only to see that Zuiyu, who was in a coma, had opened those big black eyes at some point, and was now looking at himself with a strange expression. "Zuoyu, you're finally awake, are you alright?" Naruto was stunned for a moment, then asked. However, at this moment Zuoyu snorted coldly and turned her head away, inexplicably angry. "What's wrong?" Naruto continued to ask. At this time, Zuoyu sat up directly and said lightly, "During my coma, your relationship developed really fast." Huh? Naruto was stunned when Sayu said a word, and then he realized that he was holding Sakura at this time, and Sayu was obviously very concerned about this matter. After thinking about it, Naruto couldn't help laughing. Sayu was not interested in herself, she was not happy to see her holding Sakura. But he didn't bother to explain. After all, this kind of thing is getting worse and worse, so he simply changed the topic and said directly, "Does your neck still hurt?" Unexpectedly, as soon as Naruto said these words, Zuoyu shook his head. "I want you to take care of it." Then, under Naruto's funny and helpless eyes, he found some dry wood nearby, lit the fire and raised a fire not far away, and then leaned on the tree trunk and closed his eyes to rest. However, Zuoyu was very uneasy at this time. These two guys actually got together. It was too much. Naruto, a bastard, after knocking himself out, actually kissed me and me with Sakura. Since that's the case, you might as well be out of sight. Never ignore him again. The angry Zuoyu. Naruto naturally didn't know what was in his head, but he couldn't help but feel a little distressed. He is not a fool with zero EQ. Zuoyu is obviously jealous. If he can't even see it, then the transmigrator himself is too fake. However, despite this, he was an adult man in his previous life. Although he is now a 12-year-old Naruto, he is still an adult psychologically. He likes the type of Yuji. The girl in the cardamom age, of course, likes it very much, but it is really a joke for him to reach the level of love. After thinking about it for a while, Naruto no longer bothered, so he hugged Sakura like this, sitting on the spot and closing his eyes, secretly practicing chakra. The reason why I didn't let her go was because I was afraid of waking her up. After all, Sakura hadn't closed her eyes all day, so let her get a good night's sleep. Soon, the surroundings gradually became brighter. Although it was still so dim in the forest, the sky was already white with fish belly. Naruto, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground practicing chakra, slowly opened his eyes. After practicing in the middle of the night, his chakra improved again. In her arms, she naturally woke up when she moved. Opened her confused eyes slightly, and Sakura was quite cute at this moment, but she sat up immediately and whispered, "My God, I fell asleep." Naruto smiled slightly. Looking at the smiling Naruto, Sakura couldn't help but think that last night she desperately threw herself into his arms, and she actually fell asleep in his arms. Feeling that his body temperature was still lingering on her body, Sakura couldn't help but look like Yuhi's face, bright, and for a while she sat on the spot and faltered. After a while, she stood up abruptly and said quickly, "Oh, by the way, where's Zuoyu?" Looking around, he saw Zuoyu sitting alone by another fire. She was also practicing chakra at this time. With the movement on Naruto's side, Sayu naturally opened her eyes and saw Sakura's question. Then she stood up and came to the two of them. Without looking at Naruto, she said lightly to Sakura, "Since I woke up well, let's go and grab the scroll and enter the tower." Naruto also stood up and nodded and said, "Okay, but before that, let's eat something to fill our stomachs. The dry food we brought with him was finished yesterday, so let's grab something to eat." Hearing Naruto's words, Sakura was hungry too. Zuiyu's face was flat, she couldn't see any expression. She ignored Naruto, but her stomach growled a few times, which made Naruto secretly laugh. What a stubborn girl. Zuiyu's face turned to Yuhi, and she walked forward on her own. Although Sakura felt that Zuoyu's behavior was a bit strange, she was both worried about Zuoyu and a little afraid of her. After all, yesterday she suddenly lost her mind and wanted to fight Naruto and injured Enko. At that time, she was shocked. Naruto smiled slightly and followed. Chapter 53 Barbecue. Soon, with the skills of the three, they successfully caught a big hare, and then they finally found a stream and barbecued next to the stream. The three of them have never grilled game, so they didn't know how to do it for a while. In the end, only Naruto did it himself, and it was quite interesting to try it. Sakura assisted Naruto with great interest, giggling from time to time. Since last night, she has become even closer to Naruto, and she has a feeling of being inseparable from him. On the other hand, Zuoyu had a cold face, watching the two of them, talking about love, muttering something from time to time. After a while, the big hare that had been fragrant was finally roasted, and the fragrance drifted away. Sakura shouted excitedly, "It's fragrant. Naruto, I want to eat this leg." Naruto smiled and pulled down a hare leg and handed it to Sakura, who gave him a sweet smile. "Zhao Yu, the hare is cooked, come and have some too." Naruto greeted the other side and turned around and pretended to be on guard, but in fact he was closely watching Naruto and the two of them. But Zuoyu didn't respond, and deliberately ignored him. Naruto called her again. Sakura nibbled at the rabbit's leg while staring at Sayu's reaction strangely. Naruto frowned slightly, but had no choice but to get up and walk over, pulled down another hare's leg, handed it to her, and said with a smile, "Here, eat quickly." Zuoyu glanced at him, and was hooked by the scent to shrug Xiaoyao's nose, but she still pretended to be indifferent. "You guys eat, I'm not hungry." Zoe, I clearly heard your stomach growl just now," Sakura on the side said after listening. "Nonsense," Zuoyu immediately retorted. Seeing Zuoyu's face showing Yuhi's defense, Naruto couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. He stretched out his hand, suddenly grabbed Zuoyu's hand, and shoved the rabbit's leg over, looking directly into Zuoyu's black eyes, earnestly said, "Zuoyu, you should eat something first, otherwise in the next scroll battle, what if you don't have the strength to fight?" "Hey, what are you doing?" Zuoyu felt her hand being grabbed by him. She struggled, but didn't. She pushed back awkwardly. "I don't want to eat. You still force me to eat. You or me, who the hell do I want you to take care of so much?" Suddenly, a slamming sound flew towards the two people in the quarrel. The target was Zuoyu's clean forehead. Naruto was slightly startled, but he reacted in an instant, and then slammed forward, pushing Sayu to the ground, and the man also pressed him heavily. "Ah, what are you doing?" Zuoyu didn't notice the kunai, because at this time her attention was all on Naruto, and before she could find out the whereabouts of the kunai, she was pinned down by Naruto. Underneath, at this moment, her heart was beating. "Be careful, there is an enemy attack." Naruto put his hands on the ground, and led Sayu to turn some somersaults on the ground quickly, and straightened her upright with a serious expression. "What?" Zuoyu was also startled suddenly. Looking towards Naruto's line of sight, a handle of kuwu was stuck on the ground in front of the two of them. At this time, several rough voices sounded in the field. "Ha ha ha, big brother, there are two more little beauties here. I don't know if they have the scroll of the sky on them." Several tall figures appeared in front of the three of Naruto, wearing the forehead guards of Longan village on their heads. Excited smiles all over his face. Naruto frowned slightly. At this time, Sakura was also shocked by the abnormal situation in the field, and instantly prepared for battle and came to Naruto's side. "What scroll do you guys have on you?" Naruto let go of Sasu, handed the hair in his hand to Sakura, and asked her to hold it well. He slowly took out a kunai from the knife bag and said straight. Sakura next to him. He laughed a few times, and one of them stood up and shouted, "Boy, take out your scrolls obediently, leave these two little beauties behind, and leave on your stomach, we will bypass you, or we will kill you." Saying that, those people cooperated with a burst of murderous aura from their bodies, and together with their sinister smiles, if Genin, who had just graduated from the ninja school, might be shocked, but the three of Naruto have already experienced Orochimaru's murderous. I don't care about these guys who are only a little bit stronger than the average Genin. Seeing that the three of them were still in the same state, there was no reaction, and even Naruto had a disgusting smile on his face, and one of them couldn't help it and yelled, "Boy, it's really a chance for you, you don't cherish it, right? Huh, then just wait and die." With that said, a few people started to hand seal, but before they could move, they felt a strong wind blowing in front of them, and the next moment, Naruto had appeared in front of them. And Naruto was holding kunai at this time, and he placed his front on one of them's neck, and asked lightly, "What's on your back?" Huh, the three big men could only see Naruto's flashing figure, and they didn't have time to block and react. One of them was already restrained, and they were shocked. The other two hurriedly jumped away from both sides. "Oops, this guy is so fast. I can only see a shadow of him. It's terrifying. This speed. Is this still Genin?" Naruto didn't care what the other two said, but just stared at the guy who was restrained by him. The man's face was covered with cold sweat instantly, his eyes showed fear, and he hesitantly said, "No, nothing, yes, it is the prey we caught in the forest, the forest." "Really?" Naruto murmured softly, and suddenly a knee bumped against his stomach. The man muttered in an instant, and knelt down in front of him weakly with his legs together, and behind him was the big cloth bag also rolled down. Naruto didn't even look at him, he walked directly to the bag, and untied the bag cautiously. Chapter 54 Karen. The next moment, a figure rolled out of the bag, but it was a person. A girl with an Otogakur village browguard. The color of Yuhi, and a delicate little face. This girl was stuffed with a piece of cloth in her mouth, and her whole body was tied up. At this time, she was looking at Naruto with surprise and searching. "It's Karen." The moment he saw this girl, Naruto almost recognized her. He, who had already read the original book, was deeply impressed by the character of Karen, because in the original book, her infatuation with Sasuke was like a moth. To the point of fighting fire. And she is also a descendant of the Uzumaki clan. Strictly speaking, she is still her own clan, although the current Naruto has no concept of family in his heart. However, although Naruto recognized her, in order to reduce unnecessary trouble, he couldn't show it directly. He just smiled and helped her up, and while untying the rope on her body, he said, "Are you alright?" Karen was still a little stunned at this time, because she was struggling in the bag just now. The myopia glasses she had been wearing fell off, and although she was tied in the bag just now, her mouth was tightly sealed and she couldn't speak. But his ears could hear all the movements outside, and he knew in his heart that it was the person in front of him who saved him. However, her highly short-sighted eyes made it impossible for her to see the face of the person in front of her. In her sight, there was only a blur of blonde hair and a smiling face. I'm fine, my glasses. My glasses are missing, maybe they're in the bag, can you help me find them?" Karen opened her eyes hard, her free hands grabbing Naruto's eyes. Arm. Naruto nodded slightly, released Karen and picked up the bag. With a slight shake, a pair of black-rimmed glasses suddenly fell out. "I found it." He picked it up, wiped it with his sleeve and handed it to her. "See if it's broken." Karen hurriedly took it and put the glasses on. At this moment, the blurred vision suddenly became clear, and she was staring at Naruto in front of her with a grateful smile on her face. "Thank you for saving me, my name is Karen, what's your name? Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto smiled faintly, seeing that she didn't seem to be doing anything, then turned around and faced the three ninjas in the village. One was lying at Naruto's feet and moaning, while the other two stared at him from a distance with a wary expression on their faces. When Naruto finally dealt with Karen's affairs and turned his head, a trace of fear flashed in their eyes. Because at this moment, the aura emanating from Naruto made their hearts tremble, and even Jonin in his own village could not have this kind of aura. Who the hell is this kid? Suddenly there was a thought in their hearts to run away immediately. I ask you, what are you trying to do with Karen? Naruto blurted out. When Naruto asked the two of them, their bodies trembled, and they didn't know what to say. At this time, the man who fell on the ground bit Kiba and shouted at the two, "You two trash, come on. Kill this kid for me. What are you afraid of? Old boss, he is too strong, we can't beat him." The two said in unison, "I think we should retreat. Boss, we will come back to save you." After speaking, the two of them threw a smoke bomb and ran back. At this time, the two of Sakura, who were waiting on the side, flanked them from behind in an instant. Sasu, who was already itching to do it, restrained them in 2 or 3 times. Throwing the two together on the ground beside the boss, Sakura came to Naruto's side, and then looked down at them condescendingly. Faces of the three were ashen, and finally they begged for mercy. "It's all our fault that we have no eyes," and provoked the three, "Please let us go, we will give you all the scrolls on our body. I just ask you to spare our lives." Zuo sneered, "We will find out the scrolls on your body, you don't need to give them. Come on, what's your purpose for catching this girl?" On the other hand, Naruto waved his hand, suddenly lost interest in continuing to ask questions, turned around and left. "Forget it, these 3 guys will be handed over to Karen. Karen, you will deal with them." Karen was stunned for a moment, looked at Naruto, and then bit Kiba and gnashed his teeth in front of the 3 of them. He looked at Naruto with a slight hesitation, and suddenly slapped the 3 of them with his palm and slap in the face. Screams began. Moreover, not just a few times, but dozens of times in a row, until their cheeks were swollen high and their mouths were covered with bloodshots, and then it stopped. At this time, even if they have the strength of genin, they have been beaten to death. The 3 Naruto on the side looked at Karen with strange expressions. Really hard to start. Looking at Karen, who was still full of intellect, Naruto had a strange thought in his heart. Karen, who seemed to be full of intellectual aura, was actually quite violent. However, it's no wonder, if she really looks so intellectual and quiet. In the original book, Orochimaru would not have been sent to the base detention center to manage the group of mad guys who were often mad by the curse mark. The power to take care of those guys requires more than just talent. After a while, Karen calmed down and thanked the 3 Naruto again. "Thank you so much, if it weren't for you, I would have been in trouble," she said, looking at her with strange eyes. Naruto whispered in his heart, "His chakra is so warm, it feels like the sun is shining." However, Sakura on the side immediately noticed Karen's strangeness, and his expression immediately became vigilant. He pulled Naruto and said, "By the way, Naruto, let's go get their scrolls." "Well, good." Naruto nodded. So, the 4 of them took out the scrolls on their bodies on the spot, and at a glance, there were actually 2 scrolls of the sky and 1 scroll of the earth. It seems that the harvest of these 3 people is not bad. It's a pity that I met the Naruto group, and that's it. Seeing the 3 scrolls at once, Sakura couldn't help frowning and said, "These 3 guys are too sinister. They already have a pair of scrolls, but they have to take another one. Such people should be taught a lesson." On the other hand, Naruto shook his head and said, "I think this is quite normal. As long as the number of scrolls in your hand is more, the other groups will get less, and the fewer people will pass. More people will be brushed down in the next exam, which is also reducing competitors for themselves." Quote. "Oh, that's right," as expected of Naruto. Upon hearing this, Sakura scolded herself for being too stupid, and at the same time admired Naruto's mind, and now she was full of Naruto, so naturally she was small flattered in the past. Chapter 55 Variety. Next, the three Naruto who happened to have the scroll of the earth took one of the scrolls of the sky, and Naruto gave the remaining pair of scrolls to Karen. Karen couldn't help but froze for a moment, and said in disbelief, "Are you going to give me the scroll?" "Well, we already have a pair, so it's just right for you." Naruto said in disapproval, "Is there anything wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong." Karen lowered her head slightly when she met his clear eyes, and a slight yui flashed across her tender white face, but the next moment she suddenly raised her head and said, I can't have the scroll. I got separated from my companions, and my two companions are stronger than me, they should have already got a pair, so I'll leave this scroll to you." "Is that so? But what if your companions don't get the scroll?" "It's just right for you to take it back," Naruto continued. "No, I can't," Karen stubbornly refused. Naruto frowned slightly, and suddenly noticed the Otogaker on her head. He knew in his heart that if he guessed correctly, Orochimaru should have given them an order. In the original book, the Otogaker photographed by Orochimaru was "I have always been against the Naruto group." Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but nodded slightly. "Well, since that's the case, I won't force you." "Yeah." Karen bowed her head with guilt, her heart a little complicated. Sakura, who was beside her, looked at her strangely. The small storm passed, and the three of Naruto continued to eat barbecue, but it became a meal while on the road. And after Zuoyu diverted her attention after this incident, she was even more hungry, and she no longer had trouble with her stomach. She picked up a piece of hare meat and ate it. During this period, Karen, who was already hungry, also ate it. Joined it and got a piece of hare meat. The four of them ate hare meat together, talking and laughing. After some inquiries, Karen also said some things, and the reason for her arrest was also revealed. It turned out that the three big men took a fancy to Karen's beauty and wanted to take it back for training and enjoy it. Everything was learned when Karen was caught in a bag and listened to their discussion. She was terrified at the time. She was not afraid of death, but it was more terrifying than death. After listening to Karen's narration, Sayu and Sakura were both females, and immediately became angry. Sasu pulled out kunai with a murderous look and said, "I'm going to kill them." Although Sakura wasn't so radical, she didn't object to Sakura's actions. Naruto stopped her with a slight smile. "Okay, you go back now, those three guys don't know if they are there. Maybe they have woken up and ran away. They are just three little ones, don't worry about it." Zuoyu heard this. She snorted coldly, glared at Naruto and said, "You actually speak for them. Do you want to stop me? Well, fight me now. If you win, I won't go." Seeing Zuoyu's high fighting spirit, Naruto suddenly had a headache. This Zuoyu really didn't miss any chance. Moreover, looking at the anger in her eyes at this time, it seems to be aimed at herself. Seeing that the atmosphere between the two was about to become tense again, Sakura quickly came out to persuade. "Okay, Zuoyu, we still need to hurry now, we will talk about it later." Seeing Sakura stand up to speak for Naruto, Zuoyu's heart suddenly felt bitter and she felt like crying. The two of them sang together, which would make her aggrieved to death. However, she is stubborn by nature and has a strong personality. She will never show her weak side in front of them easily. Although she is a little jealous of Sakura and has complicated feelings for Naruto, when she thinks of her identity and her dreams, her mood is extraordinarily calm. Yes, he is an avenger too. These things are not what she pursues. The love that the flowers in the greenhouse can enjoy, she is not qualified to experience. Thinking of this, Zuoyu's expression suddenly calmed down, but her eyes became colder, as if she didn't have any emotion. It's just that at this moment, when she made up her mind, deep down in her heart, she didn't even notice that touch of the most regrettable bitterness. Naruto didn't know about Zuoyu's psychological changes, but when he saw that Zuoyu calmed down, he was relieved. Since she was in anger with herself, she stepped forward and comforted, "Zuoyu, if you really want to fight me, 1. It's not impossible. After this Chunin exam, I will definitely accept your challenge. Zuluyu heard the words, her eyes lit up slightly, but she didn't speak anymore, and walked forward on her own. This time, it was Karen's turn to look at the three of them strangely. She was sensitively aware that the relationship between the three seemed to be a little subtle. After the four of them walked together for a while, Karen said that he would separate from them to find companions, but Naruto did not hold back. After all, it was within their own group. But before leaving, Karen looked at Naruto with a hint of reluctance. Seeing Karen's figure disappearing from sight, the three of them went back on the road and headed towards the tower. Now they have 2 pairs of scrolls on them, the mission is already completed, and the rest just needs to hurry. As for the situation where someone will snatch it, whether it is Sakura or Sayu, it has been ignored. In Sayu's view, she just needs an opponent to abuse her, and in Sakura's view, Naruto is such a powerful person. In the group, even if Orochimaru came, he couldn't snatch the scrolls. Chapter 56 Danger. It was not until noon that the three Naruto approached the tower. From a distance, they could already see the outline of the tower. Sakura exclaimed excitedly, "It's finally here. Great." So, the three of them speeded up and moved forward. However, the closer you get to the tower, the more careful you have to be, because many candidates just lie in ambush near the tower for convenience, wait for those candidates who already have scrolls in their hands to pass by, and then capture them in one fell swoop. Generally speaking, these candidates are all amazing and confident guys. Naruto analyzed the situation with Sakura and Sasu, the two agreed. Although Sasu still looked cold, she also agreed with Naruto's thoughts and raised her vigilance slightly. At this moment, a sound of fighting suddenly came from not far away. Naruto frowned slightly, Sakura immediately became nervous, while Sasuke was instantly excited. "Looks like there's a fight there, let's go to the tower quickly." Sakura didn't want to be involved, so she said to Naruto and Suzuki. However, when they looked at Naruto, they saw Naruto's expression strange, and only heard him say, "Sakura, Sakura, you two should go to the tower first, I will go over there and see it later. Follow me right away." Naruto, what are you going to do?" Sakura couldn't help asking, and Sayu also looked at him strangely and dissatisfiedly. Naruto smiled slightly, "There's an acquaintance over there, I'll go take a look." After saying that, regardless of the reaction of the two, he hurried towards that side. Sakura and Suzuki looked at each other and had no choice but to follow. Unconsciously, Naruto has become the backbone of the three, and even Sayu, who is very unconvinced, can't help but follow. At this time, the few people who were fighting were the Gaara group and a group of ninjas who were extremely powerful along the way. On the way Naruto rushed over, this group of ninjas had been killed by Gaara's sand waterfall. The blood that kept splashing was like raindrops, which made people feel chilling. And all of this is being watched by the Hinata team and Shikamaru team who are hiding. They all knew Gaara's strength, so they didn't dare to provoke them easily. When the scene appeared in front of them, they were still shocked. Both groups grew up in Konoha's environment without wind and waves, and they had never encountered such brutal killings even when they were doing tasks. At first sight, they were terrified and shivered. Especially the two girls, Hinata and Ino, were so frightened that they stood there, their bodies trembling slightly, and they dared not move. At this moment, a thought popped into the hearts of the 6 of them. If they were discovered, they would definitely end up the same as the guy who was killed. Akamaru, who was in Kiba's arms, hid in his clothes for a long time, shivering. Shino's bug didn't dare to make any difference. Choji was timid, and his reaction was not much better than the two girls. Only Shikamaru was a little calmer, but his face was also covered in cold sweat. At this time, Gaara, who had solved a small problem, said indifferently to Kankuro and Temari beside him, "Let's go, their scrolls should have been crushed by sand, it's really weak, this exam is really boring, didn't meet a guy that excites me." Both Temari and Kankuro glanced at Gaara with lingering fears, and nodded quickly. This kind of person who kills purely for the sake of killing, even his younger brother, would not dare to get close at all. Suddenly, the snack bag in Choji's hand, who was hiding and staring, accidentally fell off. In an instant, Gaara noticed the change, and his eyes suddenly turned to where the three of Choji were. Done. At this moment, the three Shikamaru had only this word in their hearts. Hinata three who were hiding on the other side didn't know that there were other groups besides their own group. At that moment, they thought they were about to be discovered. Sure enough, a cruel smile appeared on the corner of Gaara's mouth, and he murmured, "I didn't expect there to be a few bugs hiding here." After speaking, he pressed the momentum of his entire body towards the three Chojis over there. The three of them instantly felt a terrifying and strange aura envelop them, and at this moment, a feeling of suffocation came. As a last resort, the three of them slammed into Kiba and suddenly jumped out together and stood in front of the three of Gaara. But when she saw the three Shikamaru, Gaara glanced at them contemptuously, and said to herself, "Oh, it turned out to be some little devils." Although Shikamaru and the others were still little devils, being so despised by a peer of the same age also made a few hot-blooded teenagers dissatisfied for a while, and the three of them immediately felt a sense of swearing to the death. However, when they think of Gaara's horror, the three of them are a bit lacking in confidence. At this time, when the three of Kiba saw that it was Shikamaru, they were stunned for a moment. They thought that they were classmates in the same class as their own. But when they saw that they were facing such a powerful and murderous enemy, they couldn't stand up when their minds were hot. "Oh, I didn't expect there to be a few more," Gaara said in surprise. And Tamari next to him couldn't help but sigh. It seems that these guys are going to become the ghosts of Gaara's subordinates. Tamari couldn't help but feel a pity to see the outstanding-looking Hinata and Ino in the field. Gaara was slightly excited. "You guys, who has the value of being killed by me?" He raised his arm slightly, a pile of sand floated up, and aimed at the 6 people in the distance. "Let's start with you." Gaara let out a low laugh, and the sand instantly ran towards Ino who was present. Under the sudden attack, Ino was at a loss, and just as she exclaimed, the sand had already arrived in front of her. Although Shikamaru and Choji next to her have already reacted, but facing Gaara's attack, they don't know how to resist now. Maybe Choji's doubling technique can take a blow from him, but at this time, they want to hand seal is obviously too late. At this critical moment, Naruto finally arrived, but when he saw Gaara, he was still a long way from Ino, and he absolutely couldn't come to Ino to block her before sand attacked. Seeing that Ino was about to die under the sand, Naruto was surprisingly calm in his heart. He decisively pulled out a kunai. The immortal power of the curse immortal was activated instantly, and his arm slammed out. Chapter 57 A Small Fight. The sound of breaking the sky suddenly sounded, and the next moment, the kunai that flew out of Naruto's hand turned into a dim light and arrived in front of Gaara's face in an instant. The speed is astounding. At this moment, Gaara's innate sense of crisis also shocked him. His face was shocked. He quickly raised his arm, and a stream of sand flew up in front of him. A clanging sound came out, and kunai was finally blocked, but Gaara originally controlled the sand that was going to kill Ino, so he lost his control and was powerless to withdraw. Ino thought he was doomed, but his wide-eyed beautiful eyes saw the terrifying sand flow and retreated. At the same time, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. "Gaara, is killing really so interesting?" It's Naruto. In Ino's line of sight, Naruto was standing on the treetop in front of him, with his back to him, his blonde hair swaying in the wind, and for a moment, she actually had the illusion of a heartbeat. Naruto smiled back. "Ino, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Naruto, thank you." Naruto's warm smile made her stunned, and she quickly responded, "This guy is very dangerous, Naruto, you have to be careful." Gaara was already looking at Naruto excitedly at this time. "If I kill you, I will definitely find it very interesting." Naruto frowned. Gaara, a guy who is emotionally unstable, is very difficult to deal with, and he doesn't want to fight him here. So he said, Gaara, can you stop being so excited? Anyway, we will meet sooner or later in the Chunin exam. If you want to kill me, just come. As for now, can I take them away? Naruto said, pointing to the 6 people present. Hearing Naruto's words, Gaara was very unconvinced and said coldly, I can't help but want to kill you now. Since you appeared in front of me, I can only blame you for bad luck. As soon as Gaara finished speaking, he directed the sand to fly towards Naruto. However, before the sand was close, the next moment, Naruto's figure was already facing the sand. Ah, Naruto, it's dangerous, come back. Naruto's move made several people present suddenly scream, and Ino, who had saved his life just now, shouted loudly. On the other hand, looking at Naruto's death move, Hinata was even more nervous, but she always believed that Naruto was not someone who would do such a stupid thing, and just secretly prayed for him. Sayu and Sakura also rushed to the scene at this time, and they couldn't help but stunned when they saw so many acquaintances present, but then they saw Naruto rushing towards Gaara, but they just watched and said nothing. There was no anxious look. At this time, Naruto and Gaara's sand were very close, and everyone almost felt that he would be crushed by the sand in the next moment. However, just when the sand was about to hit Naruto, Naruto's body made a wonderful turn, and he avoided the sand's siege with an extremely clever movement. In front of Gaara. Gaara was startled, and the next moment, just as he was about to use the sand to defend, Naruto suddenly saw a kunai in his hand and slashed towards Gaara's neck. The sand automatically sensed the danger, and was able to stop Naruto's kunai. With a swoosh, the sand was immediately cut open by kunai, splashing Gaara's face. After that, Naruto didn't wait for Gaara to react, he turned around again, and suddenly came around behind Gaara. Gaara's eyes moved, and the sand once again followed Naruto's erratic figure, but Naruto's speed was still very fast. Yes, with Gaara's current strength, it was a bit reluctant to use sand to keep up, but despite this, Naruto couldn't break through his defense for a while. Kept flashing left and right around Gaara. Gaara's sand could only be used for defense for a while, and there was no time to focus on attacking. The people who were watching the battle silently behind him immediately opened their mouths in surprise. This speed is too fast. Except for Suzuki and Sakura, who are used to it, the Shikamaru team and the Hinata team are unbelievable. Naruto, who is usually not great, has such a strong strength. At this time, it was Temari and Kankuro who were even more shocked, because only they knew the horror of Gaara sand best. You must know that kind of sand is difficult for even ordinary Jonin to deal with, and it is also offensive and defensive. It can be said that Gaara's strength has already reached a level where the general Jonin is inferior. However, this blonde boy in front of him was able to force Gaara to be powerless to fight back. Moreover, this kind of dazzling speed, even Jonin can't have it, only a strong person who specializes in physique can exercise this kind of physique. It's unbelievable. There are times when Gaara is at a disadvantage. Kankuro said very complicatedly. On the one hand, he was excited that a strong man like Gaara was finally suppressed. Troubled by such a strong power. And Temari is more interested in Naruto. I remember him as the Uzumaki Naruto from before, I really want to know how he became so strong. While everyone was amazed, Naruto had become impatient. Gaara's defense was always this way, and he was just making a living target for himself. The next moment, Naruto flashed back, and suddenly a turning point appeared behind Gaara at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, in his right hand, a blue chakra instantly formed. What kind of ninjutsu is this? When Naruto's Rasengan used it, Temari and the others were shocked by the powerful chakra and the surrounding wind. What a powerful chakra! Rasengan. The next moment, Naruto's right hand slammed into Gaara's back. And at this moment, Gaara's sand is just right in front of Rasengan. Boom! A roar sounded, and after that, the field was filled with smoke and dust. How's it going? Temari couldn't help but murmured nervously, looking in the direction of Naruto and the two of them. A gust of breeze blew, and the sand and dust slowly dissipated. Gaara stood there blankly, while Naruto's right hand rested on Gaara's back. "That's it for today," Naruto said suddenly with a slight smile, then he patted Gaara's shoulder and turned back to Sakura and Sakura. Chapter 58 Preselection. Gaara stood there dumbfounded, and did not move for a long time. Just as Temari and Kankuro both walked over with some worry, he finally reacted. He saw that his face suddenly became hideous, and his mouth was like a beast. With a low growl, he roared towards Naruto. "You really surprised me, you have such a powerful force, I must kill you. I must kill you." Just when he was blocking his back with sand just now, Rasengan simply defeated his proud sand defense with ease. And Yue continued to come towards his back unabated. To be here, it is a very fatal thing for a ninja to turn his back on the enemy. At that moment, there was even a kind of fear and confusion in his heart that he had never felt before. Could it be that he would fail? But just when he thought he was about to be hit hard, the powerful chakra suddenly disappeared and was replaced by his palm without a trace of strength. At this moment, even a fool knew that he had taken it back. Strength. For this kind of thing that has never happened, Gaara's heart is full of incredible, and she has been bypassed once. This made him unable to calm down for a long time. Naruto frowned slightly, looking at his struggling face. It seemed that the power of the tailed beast in his body was about to wake up. Just now, I didn't wound him or take back the power, I just didn't want to wound him and trigger the power of the tailed beast in his body. You must know that a tailed beast is a tailed beast after all, even if you are not afraid of it, but if you wake up at this time, it is also quite troublesome. At least under the cover of Shukaku's power, it will definitely cause damage to several people present, which is certainly not the situation he wants to see. However, I still underestimated Gaara's emotional instability. But at this moment, Temari and Kankuro also came to his side. Seeing him like this, their expressions changed, and the two of them couldn't care about anything. Temari hurriedly whispered in his ear, "Gaara, now you don't be impulsive and don't forget to plan." Quote. The mad Gaara was suddenly awakened by Temari's deep drink, and the remaining reason finally came back, which slowly calmed his unstable emotions. "Let's go." The next moment, the three of them didn't want to stay any longer and left the place quickly. After the three of Gaara left, everyone in the field exhaled in unison, and their tense nerves relaxed a little. But soon, they had a strong interest in Naruto. The strength he showed just now was far beyond their understanding. For them, it was even more unacceptable than seeing Gaara's brutal murder. "Naruto, when did you become so strong? This really surprised us. Did you always hide your strength before?" Kiba shouted and walked over, looking at him with envy and hatred. Naruto didn't know how to answer. At this time, Sakura came over and said for him, "Naruto is so powerful. Even the 3 generations of Hokage have taught him personally. Same as myself." Showed a kind smile to Hinata who was looking at him with concern not far away, and then said to everyone, "Since you are all safe, then we will go to the tower first, and then we will turn there." Quote. Saying that, he didn't hesitate, and hurried away with Sakura and Sakura. Are you just leaving? I haven't thanked you properly yet, Naruto." Ino cried out in frustration when he saw Naruto quickly disappearing from his line of sight. "Hey, Ino, you don't want to make a promise?" Kiba couldn't help joking when he saw Ino's staring eyes. When Ino heard this, his face suddenly became Yuhi, and he glared at him fiercely. "Shut up, don't talk nonsense to me." In the largest lounge in the tower, Sandai is sitting on a chair. Beside him are several famous Konoha Jonin, Kakashi, Enko, Kurenai Yuhi, Asuma, Gai, etc. At this time, they are discussing just now Enko's report on Orochimaru. Sure enough, the Orochimaru guy's target this time is Sayu. "This guy is really immortal," the 3rd generation said with a headache. "Has Sayu reached the tower now?" One of the ninjas went out to take a look and came back to report, "Yes, Lord Sandai, they have just arrived." "Okay, Then let Uchiha Sasu come over quickly. Forget it, it may be too late, let's go out and talk about it first. Sandai said after a moment of indifference. At this time, in the hall of the tower, the ninjas who passed the second test have all arrived and are gathering there to discuss in a low voice. Dry John into the platform above the hall, announcing the end of the second exam and the start of the preliminaries. Like the original book, the first battle is between Sayu and an Orochimaru spy, but Sayu's strength is much stronger than in the original book. After Kakashi's Chidori, her speed has been able to catch up. She went to Little Lee, and the spy with the dragon set couldn't catch up with her at all, and was soon defeated by Zuoyu's few moves. Seeing that Zuoyu easily defeated his opponent, all the genin and jonin mentors were amazed. The people of the Uchiha family are powerful. Naruto and Kiba, the originally won and very funny battle did not happen the same way, because Naruto is no longer the original kid who didn't understand anything. He is a traveler, and his strength has long been much beyond these genins. 3 generations, Kakashi, and Anko, the 3 who know Naruto's strength, of course know the result of this battle, while other ninjas who do not know, such as Kurenai Yuhi, Gai, Asuma, etc., are looking forward to it, because for Naruto they also secretly learned about the things that were taught by the 3 generations themselves, so they looked forward to Naruto's performance more than Sayu. It's just that Kiba saw Naruto's terrifying strength, so at this time he was desperate for him to become an opponent with Naruto. Of course he knew that he couldn't beat him, but he wasn't the kind of person with stage fright. Although Naruto is very strong, he will try it. But soon, after he and his partner Akamaru tried their best, they couldn't hurt Naruto even a hair, but they were exhausted and out of breath, they finally raised their hands and surrendered unwillingly. And from the beginning to the end, Naruto has been very relaxed, but it is this ease that has become unfathomable in everyone's eyes. HMPH, Uzumaki Naruto, really strong. You smiled excitedly shortly after seeing Neji, who was watching the battle. And Gaara stared at him, as if she wanted to eat him. Chapter 59 Secret Room Talk. Just when Naruto returned to the stage, Kakashi suddenly came over with a mysterious look. I saw him beckoning to Zuoyu and said, Zuoyu, come here, I have something I want to ask you. Zuoyu was looking at Naruto with a look of dissatisfaction, because when Naruto came back to the stage, Sakura greeted him attentively, which made her very tasteful, and even more dissatisfied and resentful towards him. And Kakashi's words suddenly woke her up, and then she regained her senses and asked, what is it? Just come with me, I want to treat the wound on your neck. Kakashi said with a serious face. Zuoyu was stunned for a moment, she reached out and touched the place where the curse mark was on her neck involuntarily, her expression became a little hesitant, because of the curse mark, she felt a powerful force, but also because of this curse mark, she was tasted when it came to the unbearable pain, especially the feeling of being eroded when using the power of the spell. She also knew that this was not such a simple power. Just when Sayu was hesitating, Naruto, who had noticed the conversation between the two, came over and said to Kakashi, Kakashi-sensei, I think I will have a solution for Sayu's curse. Huh, Naruto, what did you say? Kakashi was slightly startled and looked at Naruto, can you solve this curse? Just after saying that, Kakashi looked around with a vigilant look and whispered, you guys two come with me and take a step to talk. Naruto nodded and followed Kakashi into a secret room. Closing the door of the secret room, Kakashi instructed the 2 ninjas who were guarding the door a few more words, then turned to look at Naruto and said, Naruto, did you just say that you can deal with the curse mark in Sayu's body? Tell me about it. What do you want to do? Kakashi was also curious for a while, because in his knowledge, Orochimaru's spell was almost an inextricable spell, at least in the current village. No one can do anything about this spell, not even 3 generations of Hokage. Therefore, he really wanted to know Naruto's way. Naruto smiled slightly and glanced at Sayu, who looked indifferent on the surface but was actually very related, and said, Kakashi-sensei, you know that I also have a curse mark on me, right? Then do you know the principle of Orochimaru's curse mark? Asked by Naruto, Kakashi frowned slightly and thought for a while. Although I don't know much about Orochimaru's spell mark, Konoha still has records, especially when Jonin Enko was brought back. He also had a spell mark on his body. We have also studied her spell for a long time, and we found that there is an extremely hidden spiritual fluctuation hidden in this spell, and it itself is a very powerful chakra. Naruto nodded. He didn't expect that Kakashi had already learned about the curse mark, so he stopped hiding it and said directly, "Actually, I only knew this because of the curse mark placed on me by Orochimaru myself. The essence of the curse seal, and the essence of the curse mark, originated from a very powerful and ubiquitous force between heaven and earth. The power of nature." When Kakashi heard this word, she couldn't help but be shocked, and Sayu was also very curious, but she didn't know what Naruto said about the power of nature. As an elite Jonin, Kakashi has experienced a lot of things. He is the existence of the real power of nature. For the power of nature, he also knows that this is a field that he cannot touch. In his cognition, Konoha is only one of the legendary Sannin, the sage of Lord Jiraiya. Art involves this power. At this time, he also heard the power of nature from Naruto's mouth, which had to make him look at Naruto with admiration. Unexpectedly, Naruto actually knew these things. How did he know? Kakashi couldn't figure this out either. Regardless of Kakashi's shock, Naruto continued, and the power of the spell is the combination of Orochimaru's spiritual energy and the power of nature, a thing called Sage Art Chakra, and this powerful chakra it carries the spiritual energy of Orochimaru, so it has a eroding effect on the spirit of the person who has been casted on the curse. So Sayu, I told you not to use this power. He turned his head and said earnestly. Said to Zoe. And Zuiyu had never heard of these things. She was shocked by Naruto's knowledge, but she was also very puzzled. She couldn't help asking, then why are you able to use it? Are you not afraid of the erosion of the curse mark? Naruto smiled. The point is here, that's why I can solve the curse mark in your body, because at the moment when the curse mark was planted, I have already purified this chakra with Orochimaru's spiritual energy. Quote. What? Naruto, do you want Orochimaru's? Kakashi cried out in disbelief. This time, even the always calm he couldn't take it anymore, because what Naruto said was really annoying. I can't believe it. How much perseverance and mental strength would it take to be able to drive out Orochimaru's spiritual energy? Even other powerhouses at Kage level can't do it, right? At least for him. Naruto nodded. Yes, I can destroy the power belonging to Orochimaru in the power of the spell. However, although I can destroy the spiritual energy of Orochimaru in my body, if I want to enter Sayu's body to destroy it, I don't have this confidence, unless there is an external force to help me suppress it. Speaking of which, Naruto looked up at Kakashi. I need to learn the seal art. Huh, Kakashi was surprised again. Naruto surprised him too much today. How much does this kid know? Judging from his expression, he seemed to have long known that he wanted to bring Zuoyu to seal it. If he hadn't known that he was the teacher's son, he couldn't believe that the one standing in front of him would be a 12 or 13-year-old child. However, Kakashi still believes in Naruto very much, not only because he is the son of the fourth generation, but also because of his own judgment on Naruto. After getting along with him for a while, he can see that Naruto is by no means the kind of villain. Man of. Okay, after talking for so long, it turns out that you want to learn seal art. Kakashi suddenly made a joke, and the tension that had been a little bit relieved. Naruto smiled slightly and said, if there is an opportunity to learn sealing, why should I miss it? Chapter 60 Shameful Seal. An hour later. The secret room, Naruto took back 10 shadow clones. A lot of experience information poured into his brain, and he felt a heavy feeling, but after accepting all the information, he laughed. Okay, it's totally fine. At this time, Sayu and Kakashi in front of them were both stunned. The evil seal, a sealing technique that Jonin is also difficult to master, was actually learned by him in just an hour. Moreover, What surprised them even more was that the method used by Naruto was to use shadow clone to increase their cultivation experience. Kakashi thought that only a few people, including himself, knew about this, but Naruto noticed it. Judging from his appearance, it seems that he has already been using this method to practice cultivation. So, it's no wonder that Naruto can improve so fast. However, Naruto's strong insight and active thinking have made him feel ashamed to find a self-proclaimed genius. Kakashi can't help but admire Naruto. Is this the teacher's son? This can no longer be described with the word monster. As for Zuiyu, she has long been stunned by what Naruto has shown. She has always put herself at the top of her peers, but now that she has come into contact with Naruto, she realizes that she is just a naive child. It turned out that I had never understood Naruto. In the past, I was just blindly dissatisfied with Naruto's strength, but now it seems that no one's strength is without reason. Just like Naruto, his talent may still be he is not as strong as himself, but his thinking, his creativity, imagination, and judgment are much stronger than himself. After a long time, the shocked Sayu finally reacted. She said to Naruto with a complicated expression, "Naruto, now I know the reason why you can become so powerful." Kakashi looked at Naruto and was secretly amazed. Naruto smiled at Zuiyu. In his opinion, Zuiyu has always been dissatisfied with herself. Today, I will take this opportunity to show her. Maybe she will give up this idea, and on the other hand, even if Kakashi knowing his own strength, he has no burden on him. After all, he will not believe the reason why Kakashi will harm him. Okay, then next, it's time to deal with Sasu's spell. Naruto glanced at Kakashi and said, "Kakashi-sensei, you can go out now." "Huh," Kakashi said inexplicably, "I'm still here to watch you all. If something goes wrong with your seal, Naruto, I'll be there to help you." When Naruto heard this, he frowned, glanced at Zuiyu slightly, and continued to Kakashi, "Don't forget Zuiyu's identity. She is a girl. What are you doing here as a big man? She has runes engraved on her body. Also, I'll separate Shadow Clone for myself, so you don't have to worry about it." When Kakashi heard this, his expression suddenly became very strange, and then he went out sweating profusely, thinking in his heart, "This guy, Naruto, is not the ultimate goal, right?" In this regard, Kakashi is becoming more and more incomprehensible to Naruto. After Kakashi went out, Sayu, who had been silent for a while, finally said, "He's a big man, so what are you? Are you a woman?" Naruto smiled slightly, "I'm a boy." "You." Looking at his smile, Zuiyu suddenly felt that this guy was also very shameless, and, when she thought that she was going to take off her clothes and have runes carved on her body, she had a feeling of trembling all over her body. This is something that has never happened. If she had known, she should not have promised these two people to come and deal with the curse. It's just, I didn't expect that Naruto would actually drive Kakashi out. It seems that he also cares about himself. Thinking of this, Zuiyu suddenly felt a strange feeling in her heart. In fact, Naruto was also a little strange about his behavior. He didn't have any obscene thoughts about this stubborn girl Uchiha, but he didn't want her to be seen naked by Kakashi. Perhaps it was because this girl was jealous of herself, which led to her occupying an important position in her heart. This kind of subtle psychology, even if Naruto is a transmigrator, it is not clear at this time. Fortunately, next, he focused his energy on the seal. "Take off your clothes." Naruto's words made Zuoyu's body tremble slightly. She bit her lower lip, slowly took off her jacket, and opened the underwear inside. Suddenly, her half-white body appeared in Naruto. In front of the person, in this dark secret room, he has a bright feeling. Her skin was as delicate as snow, her thin shoulders, and her smooth jade back. Although Zuiyu was only 12 years old, she was just developing at the moment, and the slight bulge on her chest could be ignored, but her entire body was already radiating the amazing charm of women. However, that's all, Naruto just couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Sure enough, it's not unreasonable that there are people like Lolicon in this world, and then he started the formal procedure. Biting his fingers, the blood slowly flowed out. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. Starting from the curse mark on Zuiyu's neck, he used blood to write a series of runes on her tender body. The back, arms, waist, and chest, plus the small navel, Zuiyu's naked upper body, almost all corners were covered with runes. At this time, Zuiyu's face was full of yuhi, and her body was trembling. Because Naruto's fingers were constantly wandering around her body, she couldn't help but feel a strange feeling, and her body was inexplicably hot. This strange reaction made her feel uneasy and restless. But more of embarrassment. Naruto, has he already taken advantage of him? Call. He exhaled, and it took more than 10 minutes to finally record all the complex runes. Then, together with Shadow Clone, he carefully checked the runes again to see if there were any mistakes, and then nodded and said in his mouth. The rune has been burnt. Zuoyu, next, you have to concentrate.